Ladies and gentlemen of the old world, I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're going to be talking about beginner-friendly factions in Total War Warhammer 3 multiplayer. So these are factions that I would recommend whether you're brand new to the game, just getting into multiplayer for the very first time, maybe doing a little bit of ladder action, joining a new player tournament, or even if you want to get sweaty real quick, hey, I ain't judging. These factions are going to be great for you. So without further ado, let us begin by talking about Norska. I think Norska is an amazing faction for beginners. They have extremely stalwart infantry that have one of the stronger infantry mechanics in the game with the rage ability. So basically, the longer they fight, you get physical resistance, you get leadership, you get melee attacks. So you just kind of get a battle line of infantry, stack some monstrous infantry on top of them and or on the flanks, and just kind of move forward. And they do pretty damn solid work. You can kind of forget about them in sustained combat, and they're going to get better and better the longer they fight. And what's really cool about Norska as well is they're very easy on the wallet, right? And that's one of the biggest obstacles for getting into Total War multiplayer is like getting some of these factions. You have to get like 3 or 4 DLCs to get all the units, and it's a bit of a nightmare, right? But with Norska, you just get one DLC, and they're going to be getting an update very soon as well in the upcoming DLC. So that's pretty much all you'll need. They're a robust faction that are very good in competitive multiplayer. They see a lot of play. The flavor of the faction is an absolute win. And yeah, again, they're sturdy, they're durable, they're straightforward to play. Basically, bring a battle line of infantry, bring a couple monstrous units to support, whether it be skin wolves against large threats, maybe some familiar if you're dealing with a heavy infantry faction, or mammoths, right? Mammoths are great. You just throw them in infantry and let them feast. You move forward and use a couple skirmish cav, and that's also good too, because it's going to be training you how to use infantry, a little bit of mobility via skin wolves and trolls and frost wolves, the Norskan ice wolves, as well as skirmish cavalry, which are a big element of their roster. But overall, I feel like Norska is pretty forgiving, and a lot of the Chaos factions are forgiving, but Norska even more so with that rage mechanic, and they're also simplistic to play. But what's great about investing in Norska as a faction is even though I think they're very easy to pick up for beginners, they do have a very high skill cap as well. It's not like a faction that is easy to play and then you're going to hit a wall where you start getting outclassed at the higher levels of play. That's not the case at all with Norska. They can compete at the highest level, and it's only going to get better once they get their upcoming DLC, right? And yeah, just a super cool faction. Who doesn't love some fantasy Vikings? And yeah, like I said, high skill expression as well at the higher levels. Once you get fancier, they have a lot of targeted abilities like Sea Fang, the Skinwolf Werekins, and their casters can provide a lot of these like single entity dueling squads. A lot of good expression on the faction overall. So I highly recommend Norska to beginners. And again, I could even give you guys like a generic build. So like here, for all of you guys who are like brand new to the game, I'm going to give you a generic build right now. So basically, you could bring something like this in almost every single matchup. And it's look, in Total War multiplayer, you want to contour your build to whatever faction you're facing. You always want to do that. But if you're like brand new playing your first like couple starter games, then this is basically going to be for you. It's something that's going to be very simple, right? So Burning Head is good, but honestly, Death Magic is good in every matchup. You just go Spirit Leech, you go Buna, and you're going to get a Norskan Warhorse here. And then you're going to want to get Skirmishers. So the Skirmishers are pretty straightforward. You basically just move them around in a control group together, and you just follow around enemy targets, and they'll just throw their axes at the nearest target, right? And they're going to do pretty good. Get a couple Javelins in the mix as well, and then out of reserves, you can get like a Skin Wolf and a Frost Wolf, right? So you have like an anti-cavalry squad here, anti-monsters with these units, a pretty good infantry line. Wolfric's going to be able to use his lore of boats, the Sea Fang, the roast things, and then you have the Shaman Sorcerer for support. Now, in reinforcements, we can do a reinforcing army for you guys as well. And again, this is just a generalist build. Probably like a 4th Horseman would be good. Mammoths are a little bit risky to bring in like generalist builds, but if you're a beginner and just want to have some fun with it, throw a mammoth in there. You're not going to regret it. Frost Trolls are also quite good. They can do some work. And lately, I've been a big enjoyer of the Famir. Granted, in this case, your build's kind of lacking a little bit of anti-large. It has good infantry killing power with the Norskins and the Mammoths. And from there, you could probably throw in another Skin Wolf or something like that. And you're going to want some more infantry units. So you can get a couple Spearman units. And just to fine tune this a little bit, we can cut you and get a, what Norskan build? You gotta have like a Berserker, right? So we're gonna get a Marauder Berserker in there and then get just a Great Weapon Boy. Like this is a generalist build, would be fine in a lot of matchups. So highly recommend Norska. Now, the next faction we're going to be talking about is the Tomb Kings. So the Tomb Kings are a really, they're another faction that are easy to pick up because your entire roster is unbreakable, right? You don't have to worry about rallying units. They're typically going to be fighting nonstop. They are more challenging than Norska and the Chaos factions because they have a lot of combined arms elements. You're going to be microing a lot of light cavalry, a lot of archers, skirmishers, monsters, artillery. So it can be overwhelming. But there are some very simplistic ways to play the Tomb Kings, which I think are very, very good for beginners. So like I said, the faction is unbreakable. They're incredibly strong, easy to get into, and have a lot of skill expression. You can play simplistic Tomb Kings builds. like this. So right now we're going to give you a beginner's build. So if you're brand new to the game, you basically can do something like this. Just bring Kata. He's a simple wizard. Put him on a horse and give him Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades, Nero's Incantation of Protection, as well as Usirian's. 3 very, very good spells. You want to bring his Lich Staff. It's a very annoying item. Since he's not going to be like in combat, you can cut the curse. Restless Dead you want to keep. My Will Be Done, you can cut that as well and get Sandstorm. So from here, just a very straightforward line of the Nehekar Warriors. The strongest monsters in the game, by the way. This build, I feel like I could grab like a new player who's never played this game before, and after 3 hours, they could like win a tournament match with this build. It is that easy to do. So basically, you just move forward with your Sphinxes, you cast support spells with Kotep, and then you just get the Khemerian War Sphinxes to just run things over, right? So in the back end reserves, you would want some of these Carrion here. Nehekar Horsemen are God tier. Skeleton Horsemen are some of the best light cav in the game. And in case they have like a big scary monster, you can bring a Ushabti Greatbow as well as the Eyes of the Desert. Because your Sphinxes handle the infantry element of things, and then the Ushabti Greatbow and the Eyes of the Desert are going to be able to do most of the heavy lifting. So in the main army, I'd probably contour this a little bit too. So do that, and we will cut the... Restless Dead is pretty good. You want the Sandstorm. 2 spells is probably fine, so you can just take Usirians and Cursed Blades. And unfortunately, that doesn't give us quite enough, so we're going to cut this guy, do this, and then we're just going to get a Skeleton Spearman in there, and you can throw the chevrons on the rest of these guys. So basically, yeah, you move up, you grab the objectives with the Skeleton Horsemen, and you move up with your Skeleton Army behind that with the Khemerian War Sphinxes, and you just feast. And then from there, if your opponent has a lot of range units, you just call in the Nehekar Horsemen and the Carrion. If they bring like a big monster out to fight your big monsters, you call out the Ushabti Greatbows and the Eyes of the Desert. And from here, you're probably going to want some freaking Nehekar Warriors in reserve. And throwing in also like an Ushabti isn't probably a bad idea. So something along these lines is going to be totally fine. So give it a try. This build and style is very easy, and it's a good way to get in and explore the game and also make your friends very upset because Khemerian War Sphinxes are pretty cracked. But Tomb Kings, I think, are a forgiving faction. You don't have to worry about routing units. They're durable. They can be headstrong. But what's so fun about playing them as a beginner is, yeah, they have a simplistic way to play, but they also have an insanely wild way to play with mass artillery, infantry swarms, archers, chariots. It's a very, very fun one for beginners. And again, easy on the wallet. Just 1 DLC, you get everything, and they're incredibly solid, right? You get it, plug and play. You don't need like 3 or 4 DLCs to get all the cool units. These guys, you just get in there and you party. So another beginner-friendly faction we're going to talk about is Slenesh. Now, Slenesh is hands down the strongest faction on the game. And it's funny because, like, stylistically speaking, when you look at Slenesh from like a lore perspective and how they're portrayed in other Warhammer games, they're supposed to be a glass cannon. They're supposed to be like high skill, fast, finesse. You're like a scalpel getting in there and like, surgical precision, right? And yes, they are like that at the higher level in this game, but like also Slenesh is one of the most resilient Unga Bunga, move an army forward and just steamroll you factions in the game because their entire faction is immune to psychology, which means they can't be terror routed, and their entire faction has built-in physical resist, which is pretty nuts. So with Slenesh, you can literally just spam a line of their Hellscourge warriors and some Forsaken. You can bring Prince Sigvald, bring a caster with a rampage ability, and spam Hellstriders and Seekers until the sun and stars die out, and you're just going to win games. So again, like if you're really into the Chaos aesthetic, and Slenesh is so good for beginners. So I can give you advanced Slenesh builds, but today the purpose is for beginners, so I'm going to give you a very easy to play build. So you bring Prince Sigvald, you want his Auric armor and his debuff, and that's it, right? And then from there, you're going to want a Chaos Sorcerer of Slenesh. And what you do with this is you go the Allure of Slenesh, and you bring probably the most broken ability in the game, which is Pavane of Slenesh. You click on this, you click on an enemy unit, they lose control of it, and it charges in. So if they have a cav unit, they have a lord, they have archers, whatever. You just cast that spell over and over on high-value targets and pull them to their demise. It dictates the pacing of fights. So for the front line, you can go with Hellscourge Warriors. They have been nerfed, but are still pretty good. So you can get 3 of those, and then you get some Devoted Marauders in reserve. Probably 2 Warriors, 3 Marauders out of the gates is going to be fine. And your reserve army is going to be mass Hellstriders. They're insanely cracked. You can get I say 4 the anti-large ones typically is going to be better in a generalist matchup. If you're playing a faction that doesn't have large units, obviously you're going to need to switch this. Like against dwarves, this build wouldn't work very well. But again, it will work in most matchups for all of you beginners. And if you have questions, hit me up on stream and we can cover you. A couple Furies as well, and Forsaken are a really good reinforcing infantry because they're incredibly quick. And from here, you're going to want your skirmishers because here's the thing, Slenesh always wins the skirmish fight usually because let's say it's your Marauder Horseman versus theirs. You get the Chaos Sorcerer of Slenesh, you cast Pavane of Slenesh on their skirmishers, which then charge to their doom towards you. They lose control, and you you basically just feast on them. And you can even have like a Hellstrider in reserve in your starting army. We'll get you. And from here, we can get like the Princes of Perfection. So you have a good infantry line. You got skirmishers. You have the Princes of Perfection. And if you have a little bit of extra money, you can get Lash of Slenesh too. It's a good ability just for whipping it real good. Now, Seekers are broken and bugged. They're a little bit like they're banned in most tournaments, but again, in this build, I would recommend 2 Seekers if they weren't broken, and get another infantry unit, and boom. This build will work in like most matchups and will be very tough for other beginner players to handle. So again, highly recommend it. But again, if you're playing with your homies, you don't need to whip out Seekers and just ruin their day. You basically would just cut these guys and replace them with a more fair version of that unit, which is the Fiends. Fiends are really good, but they're expensive and they're balanced. So yeah, this would be what I would recommend. Don't be that guy. Until they get fixed, don't be that guy. All right, so again, Slenesh, very easy to play for beginners. Just move forward and prosper. You're going to have a good time. So next up, we're going to be going to the Lizardmen. I think Lizardmen are a faction that is really easy to pick up out of the gates. There's some easy playstyles they can use that are excellent for beginners to just get their teeth into the game. But again, they also have insanely high skill expression. They have crazy mobility, air forces, ranged builds, monster mash builds. They can kind of do everything. Like Lizardmen can play defensive gun line with skinks and solar engines and oracles. They can play infantry swarm. They can play monster mash. They can play mass cavalry. They can do everything. So I can understand how that might be overwhelming to a beginner. It was like, oh God, that's so much to handle. But again, today, we're going to give you like perspective on how to play them as a beginner and some like a basic build with which you can get started, right? So Lizardmen are really easy for beginners because they're incredibly stalwart. Their Saurus warriors have insanely good leadership and grinding capabilities. Their cavalry are high leadership. Their monsters are high leadership. They have healing. Healing is so good for beginners because, again, you make a big mistake, you blunder something, you're not just going to die, right? It's not like Dark Elves, which are one of the hardest factions in the game to play, where you get heavy burst on your lord or an important unit and you're just kind of dead. With Lizards, very, very forgiving. High leadership, durable, high HP pools. Saurus warriors have freaking 10,200. It's nuts. So, a good beginner build. You can go with Mazdamundi. Have some fun. You're going to want Apotheosis. You're probably going to want Arcane Unforging. And, a net, potentially, depending on what you're doing. But I would say for now, just for you, Apotheosis and Arcane Unforging. Apotheosis heals your units, and Arcane Unforging, just find their enemy lord, their wizard, and just click this on them, and you're going to be fine. So Sunburst Standard is okay for Missile Resist. You can keep that. And from there, you can cut Rolling Skies. You keep all the other abilities, though. They're very, very good. So these are Banishment and Bombardment abilities. You just click them on enemy blobs, and you're going to be fine. From here, just get a battle line of Saurus Warriors. You're not going to regret it. They're very good. And then on the flanks, you're going to want a couple of cohorts. These guys are fast capture weight. They have Javelin. So think of your battle line with your Saurus in front, and then 2 of the Skink cohorts flanking each of them, right? You're going to want a couple Skink Skirmishers. Just slap all these guys in one control group. So this mainline army here of the Saurus and the Skinks is going to be your main. That's going to be your main freaking army in one control group. And then the Skink Skirmishers just move up and grab the objectives and just be annoying, basically, right? In reserves, Feral Cold Ones are good against most things. Cold One Spear Riders against any large threats that you're facing. You can get a Salamander Hunting Pack to deal with big targets if you're dealing with monstrous play. And, you can go from there and have a good time. And then in your main army, let's just get you one big heavy hitter, one big sweeper. We're going to get the Sacred Cohort of Waddle. They're a generalist unit. And they're good against most things. But we need to free up a little bit of money because they are pretty damn expensive. So probably cut that standard, which isn't super important. Slap some chevrons on here. And you got a good build. Saurus move up. Cohort support. You have the Skinks to poke big threats. You have a little bit of sniping via Mazdamundi. And the Cohort's going to protect you against most stuff. And then on the backside, you have really, really good mobility support. And now we just need to kind of decide how to fine-tune this. And really, probably just more infantry. You can bring a couple red-crested Skinks in case you're dealing with armor. You're going to want to max out on these cohorts. They're very good. And then max out on the, not max out, but get 3 or 4 of the little Skink cohorts. They're insanely good, cost-effective capture weight. And they do quite a bit of work. So from here, you can get more clever girls if you want to. You can get a Cold One Spear Rider. Just really lean into the heavy cavalry, or bring a monster if you want to. Croxagores aren't a bad choice, but you have decent anti-infantry in this build. But I suppose that is one of the weaker elements of the build is the anti-infantry. So now you have this guy and this guy for the anti-infantry. You have the Feral Cold Ones. You have anti-large here. If they go big monster, you have shooting. It's an easy beginner build that you can jump into some games and have some fun. So the last faction we're going to be talking about today is probably the easiest of the bunch to play, which is Khorne. So I like Khorne for beginners. But also on that same coin, it doesn't teach you how to use magic as a beginner. So that's my one gripe with them as a beginner faction. So that's why they're kind of the last one mentioned here. if you understand the basics of Magic in this game, maybe you played campaign, you're coming to multiplayer, then I think they're a great faction for beginners. But if you've like never played Total War Warhammer before or any Total War multiplayer, I do recommend starting with a faction that has access to Magic so you can understand how that system works, because you need to know what your opponent's doing to you with spells as well, right? Whereas Khorne isn't really going to teach you that. But Khorne is super easy to play. You basically just get a bunch of cost-effective units that are good in melee, contoured to what your opponent's doing. You move forward and you just fight. That's it. So again, that's just what you do. Their units are incredibly cost-effective. And here's the thing. Ranged units are way harder to use in this game than melee units. Melee units, you could just unga-bunga forward and click on things and they're going to fight. Ranged units require positioning and finesse, and there's a lot of jank with line of sight that you need to know how to deal with, but Khorne doesn't worry about that too much. So again, we're going to give you a generalist build. I can't reiterate enough, as you get more experience, do not do this. Do not use generalist builds. You need to start contouring your build to what you're facing off against. But for brand new beginners, we'll do it. So you want the Valky is super good. She's probably the best Khorne character. You just use the Sleipnir to wind spell and nuke infantry positions or cav, whatever, and the Demon Shield to make her invulnerable if you screw up. From here, you can just use Wrathmongers. They're insanely cost effective, and then you can just get like basic dual weapon Marauders are pretty good, but against like Kislev or a faction with like hybrid shooting, you would never want to do this, and you just get a lot of Marauders. So the Khornate Marauders are really, really good fighters. I like to just get a lot of those bad boys, and then a couple of Marauder Horsemen in reserve. We can cut one of you down. We have 800 left here, so we can get a Fleshhound to kind of support your mobility, right? So this build is like you just move forward, grab the objectives, get the Wrathmongers on into like a pit fight, and you get the Marauder Horsemen out to skirmish and contest. Just put them in a control group and have a Fleshhound, just giving you some battlefield mobility and positioning. In reserves, you're going to want a couple Furies. And they're really, really good on Khorne, Hounds of the Blood Hunt, and get the Fleshhounds. Probably 3 Fleshhounds is adequate, to be completely honest with you. Minotaurs of Khorne are excellent if your opponent's presenting large threats. You have the Minotaurs and the Marauder Horsemen, and you can even get another Wrathmonger. Wrathmongers are really beginner-friendly units and do some work. And then Khorngors. Khorngors are a nice Vanguard piece that do quite a bit of work, so we can probably cut one Fury, get the Khorngor, and then we have 900 here to spend. So let's see. Blood Beasts are also very, very nice. I'm trying to figure out how we could really fit them in. We could just go regular Fleshhounds instead and then get a Blood Beast. So Blood Beasts are a generalist armor-piercing unit. You can stack them on top of any of your Marauders and really do well. Minotaurs can do the same thing, but these guys are more anti-large. Wrathmongers are pretty cracked, and this is going to be a nice one for you. So hopefully that video was helpful. In summary, I think the best beginner factions are Norska, Tomb King, Slenesh, and Lizardmen, and Khorne. I think they're easy to play, easy to pick up, and have pretty good skill expression as well. Like, I think maybe the one that probably, Khorne is very good and very easy to get into, but I do find at the higher levels, lack of magic can be tough, but they still see play in some tournament finals and whatnot. But overall, these factions are all great, and you're going to have a good time with them, and I hope these generalist builds were helpful. So we will be doing a video relatively soon, sometime in the next week or two, like a beginner's basics to the game to just kind of explain how domination mode works and how like the capture points and the positioning and the different tactics you can do. So we'll have that soon. Thank you guys. You guys rock, take care of yourselves, and we will see you all on the battlefield.